Hi, how you doing? So I was chatting with a client about something that I thought I'll make a video on that. I find it quite interesting. It's about the whole resource scarcity thing. And this is something that for a lot of us it looks quite similar, but not everybody gets it. So if you don't have this, it doesn't mean that you don't have an eating disorder. It's just this resource scarcity thing that some of our brains do. So and it makes sense if you think about it, if you're not consuming enough food, then your caveman brain, not your like this part of your brain, but like this part of your brain that deals with security and stuff and is like prehistoric, that part of your brain starts to sort of think that resources are scarce in general, because as we evolved, that would have been the truth. If there was not enough food coming in your mouth, it would have been because there's not enough food in the environment. And if there's not enough food in the environment, that being like the primary resource, it probably means that all resources are going to start getting scarce. And so that's why for quite a few of us, when we've got a long-term eating disorder, we just get weird about all this different stuff. Money is one that I've talked about a lot and written about a fair amount as well. I think it's in most of my books, that money obviously is a resource. And so when your brain believes that you're in an environment of resource scarcity, a lot of us get weird about money and we start having a anxiety-based fear response about spending it. If you look at it from a resource scarcity viewpoint, if resources are scarce, your brain's job is going to be to encourage you to accrue resources and not get rid of them and keep them and hoard them and sit on them. Because if you don't have enough resources, well, you're not going to survive. So that's your brain's job. And so money's a resource and our brains get weird about us spending money. And I know that I had plenty of money in the bank because I was also a workaholic when I had an eating disorder. And I really struggled to spend it, really struggled to it. I've spoken a number of times about me stealing toilet roll from my university's public toilets so that I didn't have to buy it. I could afford to buy it. That wasn't the issue. The issue was I had a huge anxiety response around spending money on anything, especially though on necessities. And that leads me to another point. This is sort of what I was talking about with this client, is you start to really realize just how everything is a resource when your brain starts to go into this resource scarcity mindset. And it can look different for different people, but the Martyr Effect, what I call the Martyr Effect, is a sort of spin-off of this resource scarcity thing. So how this looked for me is I was a complete martyr. So say if my parents had people over for dinner, Sunday lunch, Christmas dinner, whatever it was, everybody would be sitting around laughing and drinking after eating dinner, and there would be me scurrying about as if I was the maid, clearing up after everybody, doing all of the washing up. Not only that, I would get so cross if anybody tried to help me. So cross. I wasn't a martyr about it in as much as that it was complaining about doing it. I was very happy to do it. But that's what I mean by the Martyr Effect. Now, in my mind, what was going on there was it's like a superiority complex around it. So I was being a martyr, but I viewed myself as superior to those that were sitting around just drinking and having a fun time, because it was like, I can work harder than everybody else. I can work longer than everybody else. I can eat less than everybody else, and I can do more than everybody else. And that made me feel stronger and superior to them. And another part of it was like, I don't need to relax. I don't need to sit like everybody else does. I don't need to do those things. Now that makes sense. Again, if I was in an apocalyptic environment and there is resource scarcity, then the people that don't need to sit down and relax, that don't need to eat as much, that don't need to rest as much, would survive. And so my brain was heavily focused on that, and my brain was rewarding me for being like that. I was a miserable asshole, but that's the reasons behind it. My brain was rewarding me and telling me that I was superior and that was good, and they were lazy and I didn't need to do the things that other humans needed to do. For some people, the brain doesn't go down that track. The brain goes down a different track. And you think about it, like the brain's just got to achieve something. It's got to achieve you accruing resources, not spending resources as much. That's what it's got to achieve. That's what its mission is. And it can go about that various different ways. How my brain went around it was making me feel superior if I did more than everybody else. But not everybody's brain does that. Other people's brains achieve this by making people feel like they are not worthy of spending resources. They're not worthy of buying themselves things. They're not worthy of sitting around and chatting. It's the same result that the brain's achieving, but it's achieving it via a different means. One of those means is my brain was using a positive mean, right? It was making me feel superior. It was positively reinforcing my behavior. Other people's brains might use a negative reinforcement, and that is the feeling of you're not worthy, and then using feelings like guilt and shame if somebody spends money on themselves or does something and telling them that they're being lazy or luxurious or things like that. But the outcome's the same. And I guess the moral of the story here is we've just got to look at what the motivations that the brain has behind something and not get too deep and psychological into it. So, for example, what I mean by that is if I was a therapist, or if you're talking to a therapist and you explain to them that you had feelings of not being worthy of spending money on yourself, then they might then spend 5 years trying to uncover what it is that happened to you that made you like that. And my argument is that none of that's necessary. It's actually just the brain generating those feelings to achieve an end that it needs to. It's not actually massively deeply psychological. The brain is just trying to achieve something, and it's using that emotional feeling as a result, and it's getting a result. It's working. Now, I've talked about money. Time is a resource. And that's a really tricky one. I didn't allow myself any time at all when I had an eating disorder. I did not allow myself any time. I always had to be working in some way, shape or form. And that made me feel superior. Again, it made me feel that I was better than other people that needed a day off. Oh, the day off was a huge bone of contention with me. My manager often tried to enforce a rest day when I worked at the university bar, and I wouldn't have it. And it made me so angry when he tried and make me have a day off. Anyway, and I would say now, actually, time is, I think that's the most precious resource. It should be for everybody because this is a very limited supply. And now I love my time, really love my time. Anyway, so time is a resource. But do you know what was another one that was a little bit weird for me is, I guess we could say that love, affection, attention from other people is a resource. Another one that I wouldn't really allow myself to indulge in, and indulge is absolutely the correct word there. I hated it when people gave me attention. I hated it when people showed me affection. It would make me very uncomfortable. I really, really disliked it when people would try and give me anything. And the reason for that is because I was terribly afraid of being dependent on anybody or anything, actually. Which, again, if you look at it from a resource scarcity standpoint and my brain believing we're in an apocalyptic environment, great. You're going to survive much better if you can be independent from everything that another human being could provide for you. And affection is one of those things. And the people trying to give me something, if people try to give me anything, that was me feeling that I would be indebted to them and I would owe them something. And I'd say I wouldn't accept help. But that's different from the reason that I didn't want people to give me affection or anything like that. And that was because I was scared that if I had it, if it ever got taken away from me, I'd miss it. So again, it's just this mindset of I need to be completely functional and dependent only on myself, which is a good quality to a degree. But if you take it to the level that most people with eating disorders taking it, it makes you really fucking miserable, because then your life isn't a life. You're not allowing in any of the things that make a life an existence, the difference between a life being existence and a life being this wonderful thing. And I know the difference, because when I had an eating disorder, I didn't allow any of those things in, and my life was an existence. And now I love all of those things, and my life is a wonderful thing. So there's the difference there. So how do we fix all of this? If you're that person that I was, where you've got resource scarcity shit, you struggle with allowing anybody in because of the reasons that I talked about, very not wanting to be dependent on anyone or anything. How do you fix it? Well, I'm afraid the only way that you fix it is that you need to convince your brain that resources are not scarce, and you do that by eating without restriction. So it's another problem that's solved with unrestricted eating. You have to convince your brain that resources are abundant. So therefore, if your brain is thinking about food, you need to eat food. That's what unrestricted eating is. And the second that you don't eat food, then you are just reinforcing the notion that your brain already has, that resources are indeed scarce. It just always just comes back to the same old fucking thing, doesn't it? Unrestricted eating. So many people think that they're going to get through recovery without doing that. And that's because they are mistaking or not understanding the difference between gaining weight and fully recovering. So you're right, you don't need to eat without restriction to gain weight, especially when your body's under-resourced. Your metabolism will be low. You'll gain weight if you eat an extra biscuit. However, you do need to eat without restriction if you want to convince your brain that there is no resource scarcity, that you want to convince your brain that food is abundant, and you want to get your brain out of having an eating disorder, and you want to rewire fear of weight gain. Yes, you do. And we all just try and wiggle our way out of that and reason our way out of that because it's really fucking scary. But you won't get recovered unless you eat that restriction. I think that was the point. I can't remember why I started talking about this, but anyway, that's the end. Oh, people, so I'm going to put this video on, like, everyone public, I guess is the word. I'm going to put this video on public. I don't put all my videos on public. So every time I post a video on public, people always are like, oh my God, you're back. I'm like, no, I actually didn't really go anywhere, but I do have, my channel's mostly a members channel. I know, it sucks. But that's what I need to do to keep the channel going, honestly. It does take some time. My time's a resource. That's something that actually is a good lesson from that. My time's a resource. I don't give it away as freely these days. You can call that selfish, whatever. My time is my resource. I won't get any of it back. And it's really precious to me. So anyway, it's not like I'm asking for a flipping load of money. It's like $2.99 a month if you want to be on the members channel. And if you don't want to be on the members channel, that's great. There's so many of my videos that are still free on the backlog, and you can just watch those. And every now and then I'll post one like this, so it's not like I'm completely ignoring you. All right, well, I'm gonna go read my book. Bye.